Hi, everybody. It's Sallie Wagner. Welcome to High Frequency Mindset Podcast. I'm very pleased to welcome our guest today, Nicole Chang. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you, Sally. So excited to be here.
I'm very happy to have you here. I'm going to introduce you to the audience and then we'll chat for a bit. PY Nicole Chang is internationally recognized as a brand and growth strategist, helping entrepreneurs build creative, transformative business solutions to scale their corporations. With experience in the C-suite, her work incorporates proven strategies and scientific modalities of holistic mindset and physical health. Nicole is a Harvard and Stanford Business and Law School alum. She has served as a director for the Stanford Business School Advisory Board and has founded, operated, and invested in multiple companies. She is the proud mother of a filmmaker studying product development, computer science at Stanford, and a singer-songwriter studying East Asian studies at Harvard. Again, welcome.
Super, Sally. Super excited to spend some time with you and your family.
Yes, likewise. Thank you so much. So, wow, lots there in that very brief bio. And I'd like to kind of talk about the mindset, the holistic health, all of those kinds of things. And specifically, you sent me a fabulous story to read, and I really appreciate that. I want to ask you about the 6 words: the dream it, see it, create it. Share with us how that came to you and what it means.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm sure some of you has heard of this. It's this notion of 6 words in terms of in terms of what would you like out of your life, and why 6 words? It's because it is short sort of thing,
Yeah.
and I started incorporating that into my life when one day I was pregnant, and my obstetrician gynecologist said to me, "I don't like what I see," as he was examining me. And as a first time mother, that horrified me. And basically, what he told me was that he saw something in my son's intestines, and that it would require an operation right upon his birth. And he said, as soon as he's born, within 2 minutes, we'll have to rush him to the operating room. And so that was something that really just shook my world, because I was envisioning, in the movies you see sort of like you have the kid and then you bring them home the blanket and everything's wonderful and everyone comes to visit, and you're strolling with them in the park. And so all my things that my visions of what that was like were dashed. And subsequently, I had to spend about 4 months in the hospital, in intensive care with him. And the what I saw, one of the things that was really tough for me, Sally, was that in the hospital there was a list of all the kids in the beds, if you will, and every day they would cross off the kids who didn't make it through the night. And that was, unfortunately, the reality that I saw exterior to me. And as a parent, I knew I needed to change that reality and give it my best shot to have my kid and follow my dream, the dreams in terms of growing up and later on being a contributor to the world. So I worked very hard to sort of say, okay, to live outside of the reality around me, surrounded by all these sick children, and kind of create the reality within my mind. And that's how this dream it, see it, create it came to be. Because as I was seeing, okay, what eventually got me through that, and then what has gotten me through so much of my other parts of my life in terms of my successes in my business world or my personal life, it was stepping out of that reality that you see, or letting that not dictate your life, if you will, and then kind of putting the reality that you'd like in your mind and letting your dreams be the goal that you're going towards, if you will. So if you think about let's say you're going somewhere, a destination in a car, you put in your GPS. So you say, like, I want to go to this destination. Well, your GPS is guiding you there. And so if you let your outside reality always, be dictating your GPS, if you will, well, then you're going to get there. And if you have a lot of negative signs, such as like I did with seeing those names crossed off, well, unfortunately, your GPS is going to take you to a place you eventually don't want. So dream it, see it, create it. It's all about choosing that, programming in your system's GPS, if you will, where you want to go and letting that be your guiding force.
Yeah. And that's so important because, we are more than our circumstances. And yet so many times we find ourselves controlled by our circumstances. In the materials you sent me, you were talking about how, 95, I've heard up to 99% of our daily activities are in the subconscious, and 1 to at most 5% we're controlling with our conscious mind, all of those daily activities. And so that's what you're talking about, right? To bring all of the power of that subconscious into your conscious awareness and determination.
Yeah, so I call it like the 5% club, which is essentially the club, or the few number, and there's obviously 5% symbolic, but of really the fact that 95% of our actions, and as you were saying, up to 99, probably all of them are driven by our subconscious. And so really what we want to do is to use the part we can control, which is our conscious mind, to steer our subconscious to help us get to where we ultimately want to go, and not where, if you think of yourself without a destination, and just instead of the boat just being battered by all these crazy things that can happen in the world, what we need to do is try to put ourselves in the position where we are kind of being steered by where we really do want to go.
Absolutely. Because most of those programmings in our subconscious were installed at such an early age. And so, when we're operating from there, we're operating from like a 6-year-old level. And so,
yeah, exactly. So, and it's when I work, what I see a lot in the companies and clients that I'm working with is that sometimes it can be so battered, if you will, by the circumstances around, that they become much more reactionary, as opposed, and they sometimes actually forget, like, what is my dream, or where am I trying to go, because it's just there's so many things within that aspect of it.
Yeah.
But later on, I think you'll be putting in the link, and so I have on my website, so people don't have to write this down, some kind of, I have a sheet that will be talking a lot about sort of these 6 words and some kind of steps to kind of try to keep them in mind within that.
Yeah. So could you give us a sneak preview? What would be one of the steps that we could use to focus our conscious awareness on that?
Yeah. So as I was saying, one of the biggest things I see is people don't have trouble with like the dreaming aspect, because it's just, if you can imagine, you've seen, it's a little bit like you say, think of the color red. Now, if you have no idea what the color red is, then it's hard to kind of dream it, right? Or think of it. There's a study done of this tribe, and they did not have the color, I think, green in their vocabulary. Blue. Wait. So let's say they didn't have the color blue in their vocabulary, but had like 100 shades of green. And so amongst all this green, there was like a blue square put in, and they said, find the blue square. And like, for all of us who know blue, right, it'd be so obvious, but they could not see it because it was not within there. So, one of the, so for example, a lot of people like dream of a beautiful home, right? They sort of say, like to go there. And so, one of the things that one can do, for example, is go find the home you really want and go visit it as if you were a potential buyer of that home. Go to the open houses and talk about, really try to act it out. Talk about, oh gosh, this room would be perfect for the baby's nursery, and we could put the bed here, et cetera, et cetera. And really, envision oneself there, even if maybe at the moment it seems a little bit far out of reach. And then, of course, just to make sure that the universe is balanced, because I don't like wasting necessary real estate agents' time, is I would say, always like share it with one person who might be a prospective buyer. But otherwise, it's sort of like doing that. Same thing, like let's suppose having a new car is your dream, right? You'd be going out for a test drive, right? They offer free test drives or different things, and then just kind of living that aspect of what it's sort of like. And then I know, so for example, sometimes like there's I love certain brands or clothing or sunglasses or some of the things, and so one way that I used to do it when I was still in school would be I would find some of the wealthiest zip codes around, and I'd go to like estate sales or different things, and you could find at a bargain, something that typically might be a little out of reach at the time.
Yeah. Fabulous idea, right? Because we want to bring it into the landscape of our reality. It's not just going to stay in the dream state. We really want to see it manifesting in what we perceive as the real world. And so taking those concrete steps is moving in the right direction.
Yeah, no, it's sort of, and one of the things really linked to this, Sallie, is this notion of confidence, because honestly, it does take a little bit of confidence to like go to, let's say there's a beautiful house, right, in Bel Air or something. You're sort of saying, oh, I'd love that. And knowing that for the moment, that would not be, where you are, to get that beautiful house, say, but sort of it takes confidence to, get yourself kind of dressed up and just get out there and sign up. And so, and to lead up to that confidence, I think that, there are little steps one can take towards that. But actually, I just want to step aside first and talk about why I think confidence is so important. Yeah. Since my first experience as a mother was very jarring to me, a lot of my parenting became very, very conscious afterwards, because I really saw something, when you almost get something taken away from you, you learn to appreciate it so much more. Yes. And so that experience with my first child made me appreciate parenting that much more. And I became very thoughtful about things I did within that. And one day I was with some of my classmates from Stanford Business School, and we were talking about if we could give one thing to our child as they were growing up in this VUCA world, if you will, very complex and changing, what would that be? And so we talked about different things, and some of those, we're able to say, we're going to give them our family company, etc. But for those of us who were not in that position, if you will, from material things, we thought about. I thought a lot. Well, yes. I think it'd be great for them to get a good education, but a lot of education where we're seeing it is it's not about actually what you're learning, but it's about how to learn and different things. But then if you think about the fact that so many of the jobs or things that they'd be doing with their time don't even exist today, I sort of said they really have to be able to be flexible and resilient in change. Mm-hmm. And within that aspect, I sort of said the one thing that I think allows one to be that is to have confidence. Because I think if you have confidence, the confidence to be comfortable in the unknown, the confidence to fail and just see that as just one step more towards success, that this confidence is the attribute that would lead one to do things. And so that's why I sort of say emphasis towards confidence. And it's this confidence that will allow you, for example, to go see that house that is your dream house, or to test drive that car, and to be able to wear that skin, if you will. So the confidence, a lot of times people ask me, how do you get confidence? And I would say it is just move in the direction of what confidence is. And I think what gives people confidence is saying to themselves, I'm going to do it, and then doing it. And like repeated actions of that. And ideally what they say they're going to do is a little bit out of their comfort zone. Yeah. So a comfort zone confidence builder would be like, I'm going to make my bed every day, right? We can do that. So,
Right.
do that, but it's maybe not exactly out of your comfort zone, making your bed every day, but things like, I'm going to jog a mile or 10 minutes or whatever. And it's slowly just, and when you start seeing yourself doing it, that gives you the confidence.
Yeah, that makes such sense. And when you build confidence in those ways every day, right, it becomes a system and a process, and it's going to impact how you move through the world in your personal life, in your business life, in every aspect of your life. And so it's such an important thing, and we need to keep in mind this is really going to move us forward in business, right? It's not only for personal things.
Oh yeah, and honestly, there's a huge kind of overlap with that. Um, I remember when my kids first were learning how to. Their father's is French, so they were first like learning French. And even though they spoke in the house, they did not like know how to actually communicate with society, if you will, through it.
Right.
And they spent most of their time growing up in China, so they didn't have as much opportunity. So I remember saying we were in there for the summer once, and I was like, okay, I'm going to sit on this park bench, and each of you, I gave the kids all some money, and I said, there's different bakeries. I'm going to give you each money, and you are going to come back, and you're going to all go buy a baguette, and I want you to bring back these baguettes. So that meant they have to go and transact with that. And so now that they're now in college and they have to earn their own money, sort of things, that just, let's say, the skill of speaking French or speaking out in public has helped them, because now they can, tutor people in French, or give presentations in French, or do voiceovers in French, etc. And so what, can seem just like your personal thing can eventually lead to jobs
Exactly.
in that.
Yeah. And I think that also comes down to the concept of stacking skills, right? And we're talking life skills. These are not necessarily specific business related skills, and yet the ability to communicate, those kinds of skills are going to be very valuable in multiple settings.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think, what I see, I work a lot with entrepreneurs and CEOs, and usually our time together, they think it's good that, typically it's like start all about business. And what we find is oftentimes there's what they call a personal issue, but ironically, when we can resolve that, it just spills over into their business, because, as you're saying, so many of these skills is transferable. And the other thing I spend a lot of time focusing on is bring the CEO skills or business skills into your home.
Yeah.
Because, people spend so much time honing in on these skills or learning them, going to graduate school, etc., focusing on these skills, but we do not have necessary schools about how to have a harmonious life at home, etc., sort of thing. And so I sort of say, take those skills and bring them back in, because unfortunately, I've had a few near-death experiences, and I don't recall seeing any of my business episodes saying, oh my gosh, I wish I had, gotten that done sooner, that PowerPoint better, or presentation.
Yeah.
It always goes back to the personal aspects.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that really helps to clarify what's important in life.
Exactly. Well, yes, I feel really blessed to have had that, that situation. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone else, having an illness in the family, but I guess it's called, making lemonade out of lemons, and sort of saying, okay, what can I learn from this and do from that? And yes, no, it's it's interesting. I was thinking, a lot of us, one of the big things you hear about people's in terms of wanting to work on their physical health, and we all know that prevention is better than curative. Try to avoid it, if you will. But unfortunately, sometimes it takes being sick to learn a little bit about, okay, how important it is for prevention. And I once had an time in my life where I seemed to like have these anaphylactic kind of shock things, and I really didn't know what I was allergic to. And the doctors were like, be careful. And I'm thinking, okay, I'd love to be careful, but what am I supposed to be
Right.
careful
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
exactly? And really what it was my body was just going through overwhelm and seemed to like just be reacting to most everything there. And it taught me about like how to like re-cleanse and everything. And there I really learned that um, thinking about you are what you eat in that sense. And what we're talking so much today about is the mental thing, and you are what you think as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's really important to so we see from when you eat, like if you eat junk food, if you will, you can quickly see that in terms of excess weight or different things. But if you think about this analogy of you are what you think, you see that in certain things that maybe are not ideal in your life.
Yeah. Well, and now the studies that I've read recently, maybe not recent studies, but that I've read recently, show that our mindset, whether we're stressed and overwhelmed and living in trauma, those kinds of things can affect us at the DNA level. They can actually affect the length of our telomeres on our little DNA strands, which in turn make us more or less susceptible to inflammatory disease. So we definitely are what we think.
Oh yeah, no, it's so I really believe that the that my like the kind of the meditation or the breath work that I do has really helped me, and I know those that I shared it with like kind of get through and hopefully you know get I say this right now because we're still in this pandemic phase here, and it's just been um, no one really can know how it affects them, but it's sort of like, okay, really take what you have and do the best you can with it, and keep trying everything within that. But it is the mindset. Yes, Sallie, I would totally agree with you. I'm not sure we can necessarily change, unfortunately, what is now around the world, but if we can get in the right mindset, we can try to put up our best defenses towards it.
Absolutely. So a couple more questions.
Yes.
And I'll set up the first question. So in my coaching, I use an acronym. It's MSG, and that stands for mindset, skill set, get off your asset. And
I love it.
I think it resonates with what we've talked about, with what you do. And it really does bring together a lot of very important principles that we've talked about. As you look at your life and your journey and all of the amazing experiences you've had in business as well, is there an overarching principle that you would point to that you believe has contributed to your success?
Yeah, so my the methodology that I use a lot is the 6-word methodology, which starts with it's I don't like what I see. So I don't like what I see, 6 words. And I believe that for change in one's life, you first have to observe it. You just observe what you don't like. So it's a little bit like the alcoholic first has to say, I am alcoholic, acknowledgement of it within that. And so just sort of saying what you don't like, identifying that area. And that to do that takes as much about what do you like, and just even being aware of what's happening when around, to sort of say this is where it could be more ideal, if you will. And then I focus on this dream it, see it, create it, which is as we talked about, dreaming your ideal life, and then seeing kind of how it works, and really just continue to focus on it, and then going through the steps, and of which with my clients I work through a whole bunch of different things to kind of get that done. But the overarching principle to have any of this work is to have a system in place. Yeah. Because the one can, there's so many things, like if you look at the one thing that keeps people from really achieving their potential, it is distraction and excuses towards it. And so when you tend to have a system, tend to have less of this. The studies always show that when you tend to exercise in the morning, you tend to fulfill it. And so it's like you have something that just like without fail you do. It's like brushing your teeth. You just do it. And it is this cumulative little habits of doing things or not doing things, whichever way you look at it, is that you get you progress towards something.
Yeah. I think that is absolutely key. It's true. We can have fabulous goals and we have that vision for our lives. And yet if we don't have the system in place, we're never going to get there.
Yeah. And that's, and so I think if I had to say one thing that, that everyone I'd love to start today is to just start writing down things, put the date and something. It could be, I even start with what I call a 6-word journal. I'd help everyone, who says, I don't have time. I say, you have time to write 6 words, don't you?
Right.
Just whatever 6 words, how you're feeling, what you want to do, whether it's your goal, what you did, anything. And just every day start doing that. And then you can eventually start tracking, whatever you want. So if it's like you want to start drinking more water, so just put how much water you drink and just write that every single day. And when you start seeing progress or lack of progress, you really can start. The system of just tracking is huge.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to measure it in order to.
Yeah, that's right. But it doesn't get measured, doesn't get changed there.
Exactly. Last question. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, I just can be found at my website, which is www.pynicole.com.
Fabulous. So everybody, if you didn't write it down, that will be in the show notes. Make sure you reach out to Nicole. She's going to give you fabulous information. Nicole, thank you again so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Sallie, and thank you to sharing your community with me.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Make sure you tune in next time for High Frequency Mindset Podcast.